2020 has taught us a thing or two about resilience. The resilience of a virus, the surfaces and particles it can cling to, and just how long it can last. But also the resilience of people, the loved ones and values we cling to, what we do not to only last but rise above. For anything to be truly resilient, it needs a support system, including us. In so many ways, we've risen above and beyond this year by supporting each other. And the Natural History Museum of Utah isn't any different. From developing new ways to educate students remotely, to reinventing how we operate so we can host visitors safely, your support has been essential as we work to overcome 2020's curveballs. It's enabled the museum to evolve and adapt. It's powered our resilience. And that remarkable combination of working together to overcome unprecedented challenges is not only deeply inspiring, but also reminds us of the stories of resilience found in nature itself. Just like all of us this year, the natural world shows tenacity in the face of the harshest conditions and adapts to thrive in the wake of disaster. So, in honor of that shared resilience, thanks for joining us tonight. Over the next half hour or so, we'll discover examples of resilience in nature. We'll look back at 2020 at NHMU, and we'll take a sneak peek at some of what lies ahead in 2021. But first, 4 incredible stories of resilience in the natural world from NHMU's own scientists. Let's start with Dr. Bryn Dentinger, NHMU's Curator of Mycology.
As a mycologist, I study fungi, and specifically the mushrooms. And most people might equate mushrooms with damp, dark places, because indeed, many mushrooms require a lot of water to appear. However, some mushrooms have become resilient to adverse conditions like lack of moisture, and they have adapted themselves to environments like the desert, where there's very little water around. These desert mushrooms have evolved a number of adaptations that enable them to persist and survive and perhaps even thrive in these arid environments. And that gives us an opportunity to understand what kinds of adaptations are required to allow these organisms to shift from a more humid environment into something more dry. And that kind of information is important as we try to understand and predict how fungi and other organisms might respond to things like global climate change. So as the environment dries out, we might want to be able to predict what's going to happen. And of course, that's really important in the fungi because they are the primary decomposers of the world. They are the recyclers of nutrients. They allow for the release of nutrients back into the environment so that future generations of plants, animals, and fungi can persist.
Who knew we needed fungi for so much more than food and medicine? But thanks to their resilience, these decomposers and filters keep serving our environment. We just have to do everything we can not to contribute excess heat to their environment. Now, let's go to Dr. Mitchell Power, curator of the museum's Garrett Herbarium, to learn about the resilience of the Gamble oak.
So in my area of research, we like to think about ecological resiliency. And in ecological resiliency, it's how well can species come back after some kind of perturbation or disturbance. And today I'm standing in a grove of Gamble oak trees. Gamble oak has this incredible ability to survive after disturbance. And the way they do this is they put a lot of their energy into their root system. Their root system is made up of lateral roots and a large root ball at the base of the stem, and that root ball we call lignotuber. And during the growth phase in the summer of oak leaves, they are constantly putting sugars and energy into this giant root ball or lignotuber. And the reason they do that, it's to protect themselves in the event of some kind of disaster. And in 2011, such a disaster happened. Behind the Natural History Museum, a wildfire broke out. It was burning on the hill slopes above Red Butte Garden. The museum was at its infancy, had just finished construction, and of course the fire crews arrived, and there was a bit of panic about potentially losing these iconic destinations in Salt Lake. And so once the dust settled and the smoke cleared, the structures were protected, but the oak shrublands that grows around the museum had been really destroyed by this fire. Now, the remarkable thing was that within 2 weeks following the fire, the energy that was stored in the below ground biomass or the root systems had turned into these small stems that emerged from the ground, and we immediately saw the regrowth of the oak shrubland. And I think it was maybe 2 to 3 months after the fire had happened, there was nearly 2 feet of fresh oak growth happening. So this ability for these oak trees to bounce back under these situations where they've been cut down or they've been knocked over, they've been infested, or they've been burnt through storing energy and resprouting is, in my mind, one of the best examples we have of resiliency.
Even fire can't wipe out these plants. Amazing to see how nature carries on thanks to the support systems it has in place. In this case, the roots and stores of energy the oaks had. Just like us, nature plans for a rainy day, or should I say a fiery one. Now let's go to Dr. Randall Ermis. Randy's our chief curator and the curator of NHMU's paleontology department. He has a great story for us about the resilience in the time of the dinosaurs.
As an evolutionary scientist, I think about resilience as the ability for a species to persist in the face of lots of different challenges and changing environments and conditions. In paleontology, we think a lot about resilience over evolutionary time. And one of my favorite examples of evolutionary resilience is the ancient mammal ancestor Lystrosaurus. Lystrosaurus first evolved about 255 million years ago in the latest Permian period. And it was a pretty unremarkable plant eater at that time. But just afterwards, about 252 million years ago, Earth suffered the largest mass extinction event of all time, the end Permian mass extinction. And most species on Earth went extinct. But Lystrosaurus survived. And we think it probably survived partly because it was able to burrow and hide out underneath the ground as all the devastation was going on above the surface. In the wake of that extinction event during the early Triassic period, Lystrosaurus became one of the most common species we find on land, and it spread across the globe from Russia and China all the way down to Antarctica. And so not only did it survive this extinction, but it proliferated and became super successful afterwards. And so that's why I think it's an awesome example of evolutionary resilience. Furthermore, it's a species that you can see original fossils of on display in our special exhibit, Antarctic Dinosaurs.
Wow, not only surviving, but truly thriving and proliferating around the globe in the face of extinction-level adversity. As cool as the T-Rex is, the Lystrosaurus deserves a bit of its own hype. Let's go to our final scientist, Dr. Alex Greenwald, curator of ethnography at NHMU.
In my work, working with the native peoples of North America, cradles, either basketry cradles or cradle boards, are a beautiful example of resilience. Despite American efforts to wipe out native culture through the forcible removal of native peoples from their ancestral lands onto reservations, and despite efforts beginning in the middle of the 1800s to forcibly remove children from their families and send them to boarding school to be enculturated into American culture, and despite those efforts of the United States, families continued their cultural practices of child-rearing, including manufacturing these beautiful cradles that more and more became these images of pride in family and of their children and of their culture. People had been using these cradles since the prehistoric period. We find examples in the archaeological record, and we see examples in the archaeological record of them spreading across culture areas of North America. But post-contact with Americans, we see a beautiful proliferation of styles born out of contact between groups that previously hadn't been in contact. And there's great examples of native peoples using newly introduced materials like commercially produced dyed yarns and glass beads to decorate their cradles in beautiful ways.
It's so inspiring to hear how dedicated and faithful so many native peoples were to their traditions, even in the face of colonization and cultural erasure. Isn't it amazing how resilient nature and human beings can be? This museum has shown incredible resilience this year thanks to you. From Summer at Home to Behind the Scenes Reimagined, we're so proud of what we've been able to accomplish in the adversity of such an unusual year. Here are some of our favorite highlights from 2020 here at NHMU.
Hi, welcome to Research Quest Live. We're so excited to have you here in class today. We are going to be working on What is the Future of a Forest Under Attack, Part 1.
Welcome to the Past Worlds exhibit of the Natural History Museum of Utah, where we explore over 150 million years of Utah's ancient past.
Now, usually around this time of year, I'd be here in the canyon welcoming 400 of our closest friends and supporters, including many of you, to our annual fundraising gala. But 2020 is not like any other year.
Welcome back. This time I want to share with you some pro tips for getting to know plants.
This is one of the coolest insects I think you can find in Utah. It's also got these big jaws to help it hold things down.
Welcome back to the Natural History Museum of Utah. We're excited to have visitors in our galleries once again.
And we really hope this exhibit inspires people to care for nature and be more engaged with it in a scientific way.
What's cracking, Jason?
Not much.
Your vertebrae.
Well, someone knows what we're going to be seeing today.
The vertebrates collection. Sorry, I got too excited. Let's head out.
Here at NHMU, we remain resilient thanks to your support. We couldn't care for the more than 1.6 million artifacts in the museum's collections, produce inspiring special exhibitions, or conduct vital research without you. But we're not just working to study and preserve the natural world. We're doing everything that we can to bring it to you. Despite the ways 2020 has tested us, we have big plans for 2021, made possible with your help. Egypt, the Time of Pharaohs, opens in May 2021. Egypt will be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Utahns to explore one of the world's most advanced civilizations, and the most resilient. Rising and falling for thousands of years, ancient Egypt offers a look at the resurgence in the day of the pharaoh, and our exhibit will showcase the more than 350 rare artifacts, some more than 4,500 years old. Plan to join us in person or online. Trailblazers, barrier-breaking women in science, will also premiere in the spring of 2021. This star-studded lecture series will showcase female leaders in science who are paving the way for future generations with their groundbreaking research. Their resilience in a male-dominated field has led to some of the most important discoveries and achievements of our day. Stay tuned in January when we announce our lineup and we share details about how to hear these amazing speakers deliver their online presentations. In so many ways, we're all looking forward to 2021, including the events and lectures planned here at the museum. As excited as the team is to bring you programs like Egypt and the lecture series, what makes it truly rewarding for us is knowing that it'll mean so much to all of you.
Now, as January comes, one of my favorite things in the whole year happens, and that is Dino Fest at the Natural History Museum of Utah. This year we are focusing on Antarctic dinosaurs, and that's special because right now we actually have a temporary exhibit on Antarctic dinosaurs.
I'm looking forward to 2021 and collaborating with the Natural History Museum of Utah for the City Nature Challenge. The City Nature Challenge brings together partner organizations from Logan to Provo in a group called the Wasatch to engage community scientists in observing the biodiversity right where we live.
I was also looking forward to the new exhibits that the museum will bring in 2021. I always learn something new and interesting from them, so I'm excited to see the new ones that the museum has to offer.
I'm really excited about the Natural History Museum of Utah's Trailblazing Women in Science lecture series. With all of us taking our science classes online this year, I'm really excited that they found a way to convert this to online as well for the 2021 year. And I think it's really important for young girls to see themselves represented in science.
Right now, what I'm really looking forward to in 2021 is continuing what we've started with Teen Explainers this year.
And we are all really excited to be part of such amazing projects as the ones that we're working on right now, and hopefully we will have a ton more before the program ends in March.
2021 just presents a wide range of opportunities that we're able to get into, and we're able to explore a lot of content that we had never really thought about beforehand, but now is opened up to us into these new incredible ways.
So I'm very excited for what the future has in store for the museum, because
they definitely were still able to continue with the program even while in the middle of a pandemic. So even though things were different, they were still going strong. And they truly care about education and making it more accessible. I myself was able to receive a scholarship from the Natural History Museum, and as a first-generation Latina student, I truly benefited from that. And so I'm very excited for what the future has in store for the Natural History Museum, and I'm excited to see them grow.
We are so lucky to have the support and following of our Utah community, and we truly couldn't do any of this without you. If you've already made a gift to the museum's year-end fundraising campaign, the Resilience Fund, thank you. And if you haven't done so yet, and if you're in a position to make a gift, it's not too late. This campaign will help support everything the museum has planned in the year ahead, and we appreciate your support and partnership so very much. I love natural history, and I always have. As a science and nature lover since I was very young, I've been so lucky to have joined the ranks of the brilliant scientists here at NHMU. I'm especially fond of little alien-like bugs, which I've spent my whole professional career studying, called treehoppers. Treehoppers are famous for having elaborate, sometimes unbelievable shapes and colors, all part of what helps them survive and thrive. They are resilient, much like this museum, and much like all of you. We're deeply grateful to everyone who's helped NHMU make it through 2020 and lay the groundwork for an incredible year to come. So, here's to you! And we'll see you in the new year.